Kalin. We have a mic is coming your way.
I know Anwar said in alignment with today's presentation, but it would be remiss of me to ask, we are going into the third wet season, or I believe the fourth wet season, without a functioning radar at Brasso. So what's the update with that? I ask this every time I meet with you guys.
You can press the mic.
I know, good morning. I know that Colleen has been asking this question over and over, but we are not the engineers. So there has been work being done on the radar. It has been continuing, and there has been a number of successes. Some money has already been spent on upgrading the radar platform in Brasso. We are also looking to acquire another smaller system, a backup system at Piarco. As to how far the stages of those developments are, I cannot answer that question this morning for you, but there are developments in train. And as soon as any important development takes place, the Met Service would, of course, let you know about it.
Hi, morning everyone. Sigoni Mohammed from CCN TV6. Question to either Mr. Kisoon or you, Mr. Benjamin. Will there be an updated outlook as is standard with the CSU and NHC and AccuWeather later on in the year as we go through the wet and hurricane season? I know it's not something that the Trinidad and Tobago Met Service has done previously, but given the state of the climate, will that be done this year?
Right, you're on.
Good morning, everyone. You hear me, right? That's a good question, Sigoni. We will look into it. Want to start off by presenting our outlook right now and what they are saying, what they are forecasting. But in the near future, is a good possibility that we will work on giving an update as the season progresses, both for CSU, AccuWeather, and for Trinidad and Tobago in terms of what we are seeing over later on in the wet season and in the hurricane season.
Okay, and permit me one more question, please. I know that in years gone by, I would have asked about the lack of Pitcairn in Trinidad and Tobago. It would have been stated at a previous NCOV by Mr. Kerr that the island no longer faces one isolated event, but few areas can in fact express or experience a Pitcairn. In this situation where we have our heat season peaking between the time of year where Pitcairn is normal, is it safe to say we no longer have Pitcairn in Trinidad and Tobago?
I don't think we could say that because by saying that, we are saying that it doesn't exist anymore. But what we are seeing is that because of the fluctuation of climate phenomena, and so the different phases and the effects of other features, ITCZ and so on, because of the presence of rainfall, because Pitcairn is defined by having a dry period in the wet period, somewhere in September. So once you don't see it for a while, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It may have a seasonality with that. But for this year, what we are seeing now in the atmosphere and the upcoming, we are on an El Nino watch, and you guys are aware of that. And with the potential for how strong would this El Nino be, there's a good chance that we could see the emergence of the Pitcairn at that period of time. And maybe as we see from our presentation, and I want you all to look back, that you can see the pockets of dryness are growing over Trinidad and Tobago, which is showing that first half of the season being near normal to slightly above, but later gradually drying off. And if the El Nino, as I'm going to say, comes into effect. You know, I like your phrase you use. We will see this drying continue into the dry season. Now that's over 6 to 9 months into the dry season. You will get update before the dry season start. But let's see the strength and the effects when the ENSO is entrenched, the El Nino is entrenched in our area. What will happen next? This is just added one comment for the people from Wassa and WRA. Please note, one thing we should mention is conservation of water. So we should be proactive from now. If we're seeing a season that will give normal rainfall, and there's a good chance, and this is where we're just speculating a little bit. Hopefully it won't be as bad. If it gets very dry later on and coming to the next year, let's put things in place now so that we won't have problem with water in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning to all.
Good morning.
I am Evan Chamkalawan. I'm a director with the Agricultural Society and also with the Sales Farmers Support Group. Now, the predictive models are for a monthly basis, right? As shown in the slides. Can it be done on a half-monthly basis? For example, we learned that August will be the wettest month. So when will be the wettest period? The first half of the month or the second half? Are there models to them? So we could be better prepared. I live in St. Helena. So, you know, we need to be on the lookout.
Good. I will put it on to you just now. We have a number of products already on the Trinidad and Tobago Met Service website. It is www.metoffice.gov.tt. A number of products, the 15-day weather forecast, 10 days. We have a number of products. We start from the normal daily forecast. Every evening we have a 3-day forecast. We have already recently started updates, which I personally write, which would give you a look ahead in the future. So we have a number of products, and that product, what you are speaking about, you can have a product to help you. It is on the Trinidad and Tobago Met Service website. Again, the site is www.metoffice.gov.tt. And I urge everyone to spread the information that there is a lot of information on our website, which is there for you to go and access, and it will give you a lot of information. Much your question suggests that you were not aware of that. So I'm stressing it again so that everyone becomes aware, not just you alone, of these products. And if Mr. Kisoon wants to expand on the product itself that you asked about, he could do so now.
Yes, thank you. Yes, as Mr. Benjamin has explained, there are a lot of products available. I personally responsible for updating these products. So we have the 15-day Arrow meteorological forecast. I think we share that with your group and most of our agencies and so on, because the nature of the forecast, not only you could take whatever agency belong, you're looking at the rainfall events, you're looking at evaporation, you're looking at in terms of advice, in terms of what to do, because part of the product entails that this is what the condition we expected. And what are some of the advice you will give to farmers if to increase the frequency of watering, look out for flood occurring in low-lying areas. Those are some of the wording that we have in this forecast that will assist a farmer or anyone else who's interested. We also have the 3rd and 4th week forecast for the month. So it goes like this: first 2 weeks, 3rd and 4th week, 3 to 6 month forecast, and we could even go to a 6 and 9 month forecast. So we cover a wide selection, and that's beside the daily forecast that comes from the forecast synoptic office every day at 10, at
6, 10, and
6,
4
10, and
p.m. is
4
a
p.m.
3-day
Yeah.
forecast.
So we have the period covered. So And even so, you could actually call in, we could communicate with our communication officer, provide your emails that we could personally send email to you. And I have a list that I normally send out to. So thank you for your question, but I want the general public to be aware. Visit our websites, peruse through different tabs, look at things that you will be interested in, write a feedback, and ask for certain products or certain things that you might be curious about. Thank you.
Any other questions? Colleen?
The Met Office recently concluded their survey on the early warning system. When would we even see results publicly facing? Was this something going to be used for the early warning system? And in addition to that, are we going to actually see any changes specifically to the riverine flood alert? Multiple times we've seen in Trinidad and Tobago where, well, Trinidad specifically, rivers overtop, and we see the alerts for riverine flooding specifically come hours after these rivers have overtopped.
So Benjamin, can you?
Colleen, thank you for pointing out that survey. So that helps us to get a little more visibility, because we need the visibility. So the gentleman asked about a product that we already had, and so he didn't know. But that survey, we urge you to take part in the survey, to continue. And it hasn't been completed and analyzed yet, but mostly it would be used internally to develop our products and to see how we could serve the nation a bit more better and in detail. Because one of the things I am finding out over the times and answering questions from people is that we have information there that you are likely to find helpful, and yet you don't know about it. So it is quite important, and I want to stress again, I've said that address so many times within the last 5 minutes, www.metoffice.gov.tt. There's a lot of information there. You can even put in your, a lot of people like to make comments, and mostly the negative comments. Put in your constructive criticism, and believe me, we do look at it, we take it seriously, and we would work on it to help make a better product for you.
Can I add something also, Mr. Benjamin? And more communication officer, we have our social media. We have a lot of conversation back and forth that constructive, curious questions are answered, or if you're interested in something. So we are close to you guys. We are willing to reach out halfway with you. Let's like what you do like. We can have that. So it'll be very good for you guys to comment, add your 2 cents, how to say it, and make the metaverse a better place in terms of the questions and what you would like to see, what we can do to facilitate forecasts of the products that you will need that will assist you all in the future. Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Given that the prediction is for a near normal, Melissa Doughty, Trinidad and Tobago News Team. Given that the prediction is for a near normal season, what is the likelihood of an extreme weather event, given issues related to climate change, etc.?
Well, that's a very good question. Now, you guys can remember last year, November, October, right? Now, that was a different time. The atmosphere has changed. It was a La Nina period. Now we are in an El Nino watch. The potential for extreme events still there from as you see from our presentation, but it is the probability is less because of the presence of and possible development of the El Nino. It will cause a reduction in terms of deep convection, mean to say that you will have reduced possibility for deep convection over our area. Doesn't mean it wouldn't be there. It reduces the probability. But you have to take in mind that we have warm above normal SSTs, which will also aid into providing more moisture in the atmosphere that aids in cloud development and precipitation. So you could get your rainfall. But particularly to that extreme event, is a very, it could happen, but there's a very low probability for that.
I also want to add that remember we are predicting for the rainy season. And when we say normal, the rainy season is the wetter season. So even if we say just below normal, we're looking at long-term figures of June 243 millimeters, July 228, August 255, September 179, and October 192, November 222. So it is the rainy season. So even if it is below normal or just around normal, and we produce one day of 50 millimeters, would still spell flooding and possible disaster for certain areas if not prepared.
We will allow for 2 other quick interventions, and then we will switch.
Good morning, Alexis Brathwaite from Air Traffic Services, Trinidad and Tobago Civil Aviation Authority. And I was wondering if at your website, if you have the ability to create like mailing lists or to push information to people, right? People prefer to get information pushed to them rather than go get it. So I get the Outlook that comes out every day. And probably for the last 6 years or so, I actually send that back on to mailing lists, persons at work otherwise. And of course, on that list, it does say that information is available on the website. It always says that. But when anybody needs information, they call me. They don't go to the website, right? Because they are accustomed getting the email from me. So I think if you can create a mailing list from your website that people can put on, or maybe even like that, like the WhatsApp business addresses that you can subscribe to, like the WHO, then persons will get that information as you post it, and you'll reach more people with that rather than them having to come. As much as you ask, they won't come through.
So we have our app on our phones. I think they have a push feature in terms of products here that you could see, you'll get alerted. So our communication officer, and she's in deal with communication with the public and so on. But we are not, it's not perfect. Camille, you want to speak a little bit on what you're doing now?
Good morning, everyone. Camille Hall Graham, Corporate Communications Officer at the Met Service. Now we are working to revamp the website, so that is going to happen in the future. I don't know exactly when, but we can consider your suggestion.
Also, you know, we all have to work together. And while you may be getting it, we have different clients in the Met Service. We wouldn't send information for pilots to the whole nation. There's an IT problem or issue, not problem, IT logistics involved. So we will send targeted information to targeted clients. As far as the country is concerned, we would like everybody to get it, but the message is this: we are not perfect. Our IT system is not perfect. We all live in Trinidad and Tobago and could be in danger of certain weather phenomena. So it is in our interest to both from the Met Service side to push the information to you, but it is also in your information to pull the information from us. Our safety as a country depends on it. So when you get it pushed to you, you could push it to all those who you know, and those who can or understand how to pull it from us could spread it, because we all in this together, we all in the same bubble we call this atmosphere, and we would like all of us to be safe.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the question and answer segment as it relates to the climate outlook presentation. We will now have a quick change of the head table. We'll invite Mr. Jerry David to join us at the head table as we move over to the National Preparedness and Response presentations. Great. Allow me to acknowledge and welcome Mr. Jerry David, Senior Disaster Management Coordinator, Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, to the head table as we switch over to part 2 of this morning's proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, this segment of the presentation focuses on the capacities of our national agencies to respond to a disaster or respond to an incident impact based on the climate outlook presentation. We would have heard about more wetter days, above average rainfall, and therefore it gives me pleasure firstly to invite Major General Retired Rodney Smart, Chief Executive Officer of the ODPM, who will present on behalf of the national context of ODPM's preparedness and readiness to respond to disasters. Major General.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Gary Benjamin, Mr. Jerry David, Mr. Alan Stewart, who I'm assuming is online in Tobago. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, members of the NDPPMC, National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Multi-Sectoral Committee. Good morning, all. Let me first say thank you for coming to this presentation. And I should also add to say thank you to the Met Service, because this is the first year we are doing this sort of design. For many years, and I'm speaking in my cap as the chairman of the National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Committee. The committee has been in existence for 3 years, and we have been wondering why is it that we can't get Met to do their brief within the NDPPMC, within the month of activities, since they do it themselves in May. Normally, Met will have their presentation. And we said, listen, what, it makes sense if we could get Met to do this thing with us. And I want to say thank you very much to the director, Mr. Big, Mr. Benjamin, Mr. Kisoon, and the team for agreeing to hold this briefing within the whole concept of the National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Month. I should also say thanks to Mr. Dennis Marcel, our operations manager, who we had asked to make that first engagement with Met to see if Met would have agreed. And Met willingly agreed. And I want to say thanks to Mr. Marcel. And of course, I must say thanks to the subcommittee. The NDPPM is broken up into 4 subcommittees, and 1 subcommittee is responsible for putting this on. So I want to say thank you very much to that subcommittee. All right, so that in mind, let's look at the presentation we're going to do today. And just to share that the intent here is to give you and the national community the understanding of what takes place before the wet and hurricane season. You know, sometimes you hear some comments, unfortunate comments, during the rainy season. And it is really from people who are uninformed. You know, some people make some comments as if they know everything, but really uninformed because they probably didn't ask a question, but they have a perception. And therefore, what we are attempting to do by this design is to share with you how the national system works. All the way from the national level where the ODPM sits, down to the local level where the disaster management units of the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government and the Tobago Emergency Management Agency exists. and how that national system is integrated to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago, despite whatever challenges we face, gets the best disaster management service that you can ask for. But also that the region also benefits from Trinidad and Tobago structure, Trinidad and Tobago preparedness. And I'm saying that because Trinidad and Tobago has a responsibility under the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency for 3 other countries, for Grenada, for Guyana, and Suriname. And therefore, as we prepare ourselves annually, we are also preparing in the event any of those other countries in our subregion and beyond are impacted. So we have an internal and a regional responsibility as well. So if I can ask for the first slides. This is what my presentation is going to be. Next. So national readiness for the wet and hurricane season intensifies during the month of May. And that month, as I indicated earlier, is the National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Month. In June 2020, 3 months into the pandemic, Cabinet agreed to the establishment of a National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Month. This is to be observed annually in May. So therefore, we are in it. Last week, you will have seen in the media, and always thanks to the media for covering the launch. The Minister of National Security was here, and he launched the month of activities last Friday. And the Cabinet also established a National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Multi-Sectoral Committee that's made up of many agencies, ministries, divisions, the private sector. And the main and strategic purpose is to promote a heightened sense of awareness, preparation, and readiness before the commencement of the Atlantic hurricane season. And I emphasize a heightened sense because the committee is working throughout the year. It's not just in May, it is working throughout the year. But at the month of May, as the May approaches, we are heightening preparation, as well to holistically increase prevention and preparedness, and ultimately to increase disaster readiness and resilience. Ultimately, that's what we are attempting to do. So this year, NDPPM 2023 has 4 themes and 41 activities, the most amount of activities. As you realize, we're coming out of the pandemic, so we can broaden out our activities. In week 1, we named that week, Know and Reduce Your Risk. Now is a good time to ask a question. What week are we in by chance, everyone? We're in week 2, right? We're in week 2, right? Develop and strengthen your response plans. And I asked that question, I'll do like Mr. Benjamin. Please go to our website. Please go to our website. All the information is there. All right? Develop and strengthen your response plans. Week 3, next week, assemble emergency kits, assemble emergency resources. And week 4, act, support, and communicate. Act. So, you know, it isn't good to plan, you do your plan, but you haven't acted, you haven't walked through your plan. But not only your family, you live in a community. How can you help support the community and communicate? Make sure and share the information. So this slide speaks to the hazards that impact Trinidad and Tobago. And these are the ones that are of greatest concern. So this morning we would have heard about the hydromet incidents. But we also have seismic. So while we are focusing on the wet and hurricane seasons, we still have to remember that we have other hazards we have to pay attention to. Biological, we now coming out of the pandemic. It's been around our neck for 2 years. Social challenges, and of course, we being a oil and gas producing nation, we have challenges that we always have to be mindful of in our industrial sector. So I'm going to focus now on National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Month. And the theme for this year is being disaster ready is my responsibility. And what the graphics show is what has been happening already this year. The front end of the month was about helping schools, in particular, the Ministry of Education, working with the Fire Service, Ministry of Education, ODPM, Disaster Management Unit, the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, all working together to assist schools become more disaster ready. And this year, the emphasis was on the special needs schools. So far, we've done over 1,000 schools, sorry, over 1,000 children, teachers, etc. So the first is a set of images. You would see drills being done in schools. And it's not just preparation for the rainy season. It's also other hazards. So you see some children under their desks there. That's the earthquake drills. You see an evacuation drill. Last week, Friday, we were in Tobago. We had Port Mall in Tobago where information was being shared with the public. And this here indicates some other events. Yesterday, there was business continuity training for small and medium enterprises. And I have to say thanks to AmCham, who is our partner, for putting on that seminar. On Saturday, tomorrow, we are in Siparia. Last week, Saturday, we were in Bamboo Village number 2. So it's a number of things happening at the same time, trying to get, the nation recognizing we must prepare for disasters and emergencies. And we want to encourage you, we want to first thank you and encourage you to continue driving the messages. Because the persons who are in the room here, and I hope the persons who are online, are persons who are converted. So activities that have been successfully executed thus far: Know Your Risk public service announcements. It's called 31 Days, 31 Ways, and that has been on every day. There's a new tip being shared with the public. Social media preparedness campaign, school evacuation procedure, Scarborough Mall, webinar, climate change, and its effect in a multi-hazard environment. That was, if you miss that, you miss a wonderful webinar that looked at various aspects of climate change coming from different points. So we had the Ministry of Planning was there, the university, the ODPM, etc. And I spoke about the webinar we had yesterday for the SMEs. So preparing the nation, preparing our schools, preparing our teachers, preparing our families, but the national agencies must prepare themselves. And that's what I'm going to speak about now. That the ODPM has a role in assisting national agencies prepare themselves, because it is an integrated approach we take. So the ODPM will conduct multi-agency tabletop exercises that will include the national disaster agencies, but also it will include the private sector. It will include civil society organizations, for example, Sewa Titi, ITNAC. It will include Red Cross. So it's a whole system that we're trying to develop. Prior to the NDPPMC, we would not have considered the private sector as we do now. Because if something should happen, many times we call on the private sector who are able to move fast, especially if it is something outside of Trinidad and Tobago. You can call on the private sector. And in this regard, the Ministry of Trade and Industry play a very pivotal role to galvanize the business sector so we could provide support. Right now, there is the drills I spoke about, exercises going on, but there's also taking place the development of GIS and data management skills. And this is a Caribbean-wide thing. Throughout all the national disaster offices, there's this GIS planning that is going on, building capacity in GIS, because one of the things that help us, to, especially in the long term, to be able to forecast is data and the use of GIS tools. We also have what we call liaison officers. The term we use is ESFs. And those persons are responsible to their ministries, to their agencies, for being the liaison between the ODPM and that agency. So it's a number of agencies. In fact, we have a virtual NEOC, NEOC meaning National Emergency Operations Center. We have a virtual NEOC that runs all the way throughout the year, every day, 24/7. And whenever Met has information, they share it in that NEOC, that virtual NEOC. But we also have a physical NEOC. And this building here is a representation of our NEOC. Of course, we have a more developed one down at Tagariwa. We also have logistics training going on. And here through the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, they run a logistics course for nations. So we invite the private sector to join in. We invite the CSOs to join in, faith-based organizations to join in. And we share information, because one of the critical components in any disaster situation is logistics. Critical. If you fail on logistics, you're going to fail on disaster management. So we share information. Mobile storage unit deployment in the event something happens through the World Food Program. The ODPM has storage facilities, and every year we go through training. Core organizations, the Defense Force, who we would lean on to deploy those storage facilities throughout the country, both in Trinidad and Tobago. And this year we hope to have our media personnel training. We had it 2 years ago. We hope to bring back in the media. Please, media, come back and let's do some training again so that you could write these stories accurately, because you understand what is taking place. June the 1st, every June the 1st or close to, once we continue to get TSTT support and B-Mobile, and Digicel support and Flow support, we do a test. This year, for the first time, we're hoping to test nationally the public alert notification system, which was launched last week, Friday. I assume that everybody in this room has signed up. Because in order to get in the room, you were supposed to ask, your question was supposed to be asked, did you sign up? And if it wasn't, if you didn't, it wasn't supposed to be here. So I'm assuming everybody here signed up. But please, seriously though, if you haven't, please sign up, right? Please sign up for the alert. Because if the alert, right now we use the SMS text, and the PAN system is an advance on the SMS. And I'll illustrate. Sometimes we send out the SMS, and a day later, 36 hours later, people telling you they not receive it on their phone. And that is because of the amount of messages that the networks have to send out. What we have done now through the PAN system using the Everbridge platform, and the Everbridge is a world-renowned platform. Most of the major countries in the world use Everbridge. And what that system allows, this system, for example, if your primary contact is your mobile phone, if that is what it is, then a message, a ring will go to your phone, your mobile. So you will get a ring on your phone. If perchance you couldn't answer the phone, all the other platforms that you would have given the system, the message will attempt to go there so that you will acknowledge it. Because it wants to ensure that you acknowledge the message. So it fails to get you on your mobile phone. It will send you an email if you registered an email. If you registered a fax, it will then switch to fax. Whatever you register, it is trying to find you because it wants to give you that message. We've never had a system like that in Trinidad and Tobago before. In fact, very few countries in the Caribbean have a system like that. And hence, it is important to sign up. Because in our minds, we're always thinking and worrying about tsunamis. We remember in 2004 or thereabouts, the Indian Ocean tsunami, and the amount of people who were killed, over 200,000 people, Boxing Day. And that is always on our mind. And hence the reason we are trying to find systems to ensure our population remains safe. So we move from there, we're moving. We still really do the SMS, but we want to move away from that to a better system. In fact, I'll share a bit of a secret with you in this room that we're trying to get WhatsApp to agree with us. We can send WhatsApp messages because everybody in Trinidad and Tobago use WhatsApp. And we are in discussion with them to try to get them to allow us to use the platform. Right now, you will get an SMS message, but we're trying to keep advancing and improving all the time. Also, we have been working with the UNDP, with disaster management units, with the WRA, who's driving a project called the Community Flood Early Warning System. We would have engaged the UNDP for funding for this, a continuation of a system between the DMUs and the WRA, and the ODPM joined and said, how can you help us expand this project? The UNDP agreed immediately. 2 weeks plus ago, the 2 systems that was dedicated to Tobago was commissioned. Next week, Wednesday, 5 systems are being commissioned in Trinidad. So the project to place 7 systems is on stream and is going to be expanded, because what we are attempting to do is to ensure our citizenry are aware before something happens, especially if you live in an area where a major river flows or even a tributary that overflows, that overtops from time to time. We want to make sure you in the community, you have the information and you could act on the information. Because sometimes information takes a while to get to you. But if we are able to expand the system, which is what we are attempting to do here, we will do well. So I spoke earlier about the public alert notification system. We could skip that slide, thanks. And the system works in alignment with what we call the alert levels. Starting from the bottom, we always in a green level. This is the starting point. Green, which is low risk. And the ODPM is monitoring, and all our agencies, in fact, monitoring. Using a hydromet example, Met is sending out their usual forecast. Low risk. But then Met sees something and they send out a yellow level alert, which now causes us to do increased monitoring. because this thing could go left or right. If it goes in the direction we're hoping not, Met will put out an orange alert, orange level, which means that the ODPM now steps up all the way up to red, which is very high risk. Right, so what do we do additional to what I spoke about? Communications. We're doing testing and maintenance of our emergency communication. This happens every day, but it is heightened as we approach the hurricane season. And we're testing all the response agencies, we're testing with all the response agencies, but we're also testing with our Caribbean partners. We are moving to a point where we want to expand our satellite network, because in the event the normal communications go down, the ODPM has the ability to communicate through satellite links. So we want to increase that capacity. So those are some of the things we're doing. And of course, always looking to acquire additional telecommunication devices. Expansion of our two-rail communication system. One of the things we did was we bought radios, and we would have distributed some of those agencies who we must be in contact with, so that there is consistent contact. So that again, if the telephone system go down, the national agencies can still respond, regardless of what. There's a national emergency communications plan that we are working with the Telecommunications Authority on. And every year around this time, we are preparing and practicing through the regional telecommunication exercise. So all these activities are taking place. Social media campaign, communication with the population. Most of our population have gone to the social media. So in addition to traditional, we're also doing social media. So whatever those interest groups are out there, the various populations, we try to find them. We try to find the mechanism through which we can communicate. Mainstreaming the public alert notification system and increasing engagement with our volunteers, because we have a volunteer corps. So again, they too are being prepared for what is hopefully not going to be a very bad rainy and hurricane season. But the science, and as Met says, it's probabilities. We're working with probabilities, but we have to be prepared. Media releases, we practice that. We make sure that our templates are in place. We continue community engagements and outreaches. I spoke about Bamboo last week, Siparia, Tobago, Port Moresby. Next week is going to be Port of Spain, Brian Lara Promenade on the 19th, as well as Roxborough on the 19th as well. And logistics, I would have spoken about logistics. We're making sure that we are able to replenish our stores, but also some of our agencies who may have gaps. Last week, Friday, again, the Chinese embassy would have donated to Trinidad and Tobago through the ODPM certain items. We will be making sure that our agencies get some of those items. So they are ready. And always updating policies and plans, because you learn things every single day. So it's a continuous process. We update as well our call lists to make sure the people who are responsible now in the agencies, we know who they are, because people change, people retire. we reconfirm roles because something may have happened last year and an agency may say, well, you know, when I look at it, I shouldn't be doing that. It should be this one or vice versa, as the case may be. An agency might decide to take on a role. So we have to reconfirm roles and preparing people for deployment out of Trinidad and Tobago. Right, so I'm almost at the end and I'm going to quickly speak about the National Response Framework. The National Response Framework is a three-tiered system. This is how do we respond nationally? How this system works. So there's something called level 1. It's like the green state, the green alert state. It's a localized emergency. Somebody, unfortunately, the house burnt. Well, that is a level 1 incident. There's a localized flooding in St. Helena. That Bamboo, Tobago, that is a level 1 incident. It's in the community, it's localized. The ODPM is not going to be there. The disaster management units are there for localized events. Mr. David is going to come and speak about that afterwards. And hopefully Mr. Stewart in Tobago will speak about TEMA. However, should the situation escalate, please change, we have what we call a level 2 incident. First responders require support. The fire service may want some support to deal with something. The DMUs may need support. And therefore the ODPM is contacted. Not that they're not going to be contacted in level 1. They will be, because the ODPM is always monitoring everything. But they may need the ODPM to step up. And at level 2 is where the ODPM will partially activate its National Emergency Operation Center. That is when we are going to activate. All the while we're monitoring, and the ODPM personnel will man the Operation Center, because it says there's a heightened level of risk to our population. Level 3 is the worst. That's when we go into full activation and we ask our response agencies either to come in or be online with us, because we need their support. It is the time when we will lean on the defense force, because it means that we need national resources to treat with the situation. So we move up to level 3. So don't expect the ODPM to be managing shelters. The ODPM don't do shelter management. Last year we were criticized for not opening shelters or shelters being a certain way. That's not the ODPM role. The ODPM role is to coordinate our national resources to ensure that the local agencies have the oomph to be able to do what they need to do. And if we don't have it nationally, to get it regionally or internationally, so that the ODPM has a relationship with the whole Caribbean system. We are the focal point to get them here if we need support from the Caribbean. But we also, the system, the focal point to get the UN system involved. If we need more resources, we need to ask the UN to support us and all the others. The ODPM is who would say to the Minister of National Security that probably we need to ask our government for support. So we would provide that level of advice. Not that the ODPM is going to be at a local level event. And I'm stressing that just to ensure that the message gets out there. The ODPM is not going to respond because there's a drain in the community that's full and is causing a flood. That's not the ODPM role. That's not the best way to use a national agency. So also important is how can the ODPM get the private sector involved? Because the private sector has resources that even the state doesn't have. And therefore, relationship with the private sector, building them up is important. And I said yesterday, there was a webinar. In fact, it wasn't, in fact, I skipped that webinar. It was a training, actually. It was a training with SMEs arranged through the NDPPM, because we have to make sure our small and micro enterprises is ready, as well as our big businesses. And let me take the opportunity to say thanks to the big businesses and all the businesses that helped us last season. And this here is my second to last slide. And it speaks to the public-private partnerships that we have been developing in the area of communications, energy, accommodation and international affairs, liaison coordination, food supplies, haulage and transport. So if we need food, people, in communities, and they are unable to cook, we have been able to reach out to our private sector partners. We've been able to reach out to faith-based organizations who provided meals. And therefore, that really is bringing the whole nation, what we say, the whole of nation approach to prevent, to prepare for, to respond, and to recover from disasters. That is the role of the ODPM. Final slide. Thank you. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Major General, for presenting on the national perspective on the capabilities and readiness of the ODPM to respond to disasters and some of the preparedness work that has been ongoing in preparation for the wet and hurricane season. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Mr. Jerry David, Senior Disaster Management Coordinator, Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, and no stranger to any of us in this room, to present on the Trinidad leg of the municipality's preparation for the wet and hurricane season. Mr. David.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Anwar. Let me first say that everything about a regional corporation, all its development program finances that comes to budgetary allocation, quite a bit of it is spent on developing drainage to take water out of communities. So if it's a bridge they're building, if it's a box drain they're building, if they are opening up a water course so that water can get from the tributaries to the main rivers, quite a bit of activity is done every year. A lot of it is budgeted, and based upon how much money was allocated for that particular line item, you find that corporations spend a whole lot just trying to get water out of a community and into the rivers. I said that because you know that the hazard of this hydrometeorological events that take place during the rainy season into the hurricane season is quite a bit of flooding. I mean, this is my 15th year working with disaster management in the regional corporations. So you can imagine that over 15 years, you get a chance to see quite a bit of everything that happens all over Trinidad. So that corporations are trying to get water out of communities into main water courses so that it can get to the sea. So that all the water that comes to the Caroni River, for example, I think the top of the Caroni River is Aripo, heights of Aripo, and all that water is coming through San Juan is coming through Currep, St. Augustine, all that water is trying to get to the Caroni River. On its way, it is meeting a lot of houses, communities it's meeting. It's communities it's meeting on its way. Now the water doesn't care or discriminate. He just wants to get to the sea. So it's blocked on its path to get into the sea because we have built our human settlements in those areas. So corporations are now, we are the corporation, we are now tasked to get this water moving out of the community into the main water course so they can get to the sea. No, that's a big task when you have all these impediments blocking you. So if I am water, I have all these impediments. The main water courses are the responsibility of the Ministry of Works and Transport. So that they have a work program, and they have been doing it. And some people were telling me, wow, the Ministry of Works has started early because they were seeing all this embankment on the rivers. And I said, yes, I said the ministry. And I always support the Ministry of Works and Transport because not because I know everybody there or most of the people there, but because they really try to get the water courses cleaned. And I suppose we are developing more and more communities are being built and more houses are being built. So more drainage is needed. So that's where we find ourselves now. And then what about the landslides? Quite a bit of those in the mountainous regions, communities in Diego Martin, San Juan, Tunapuna, those that are basically hillside communities. And we have these huge, massive structures being constructed. Every time I pass through St. James, I see it. And I look on the hillside and I say, wow, look at concrete. And then when you see all this concrete, you know that water is going to come down at a terrific speed because that water has to find its way to the sea too. And it has to go through the drainage in St. James, which has not changed. So last year, Anwar, I was driving through and the water in the, we call it the pavement. I call it the sidewalk. It's really the sidewalk. The water's in the sidewalk and the manhole in the sidewalk. The water took the manhole cover and had it 6 feet in the air, dancing on the water. So again, I'm just saying that how we are developing is going to impact what happens in the communities because the water wants to get to the sea. And, but that's another one of the hazards. And let's talk about the high winds. Someone sent me a picture of their home. It's on my phone. I counted at least 15 construction bricks on top of the house, holding down the galvanized. 15. These heavy construction concrete blocks holding it down. Now, last year we did not have as many high wind events as we had the previous year. But it could happen this year. We never know. So we have to plan for it. So the ministry has to start looking at now, how do we respond to all these many roofs that have been blown off? By the way, folks, the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, we have 20,000 hurricane straps, and we have 100,000 screws that any individual who wishes to put in hurricane straps in their homes, and it's always better to put in the hurricane straps while you're doing, when you're doing the construction. But there are some ways
that we can do it, that can be done still. And these are free of charge. You don't have to pay for them. The ministry will give you all the screws because we're trying to change from saying, okay, it is more efficient to put screws rather than nails. Yes? So the year before, we had these high wind events down in Superior, and the folks were putting back on the same rafters, pulling the same nails out, straightening it with a hammer, and pounding it right back. So we are saying we can give you all the hurricane straps you need and all the screws you need. So I hope the media let them know that because it's available. Now, what's available also? The temporary covering, fine. The Ministry of Rural Development, we are resourced to give tarpaulins of all sizes, but that's not the panacea. That's not the cure for all. The state of the housing stock we have to work on, because when we have high wind events, the previous year we had over 700. Either a tree fell on the roof or the wind blew off the corrugated iron, the covering. So that's another thing we have to work on. So I've spoken about the flooding, the landslide, and the high winds. Primarily, that's what are the major hazards for hydrometeorological events. So how does the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government manage, handles whenever there is a hazard that impacts the community? So go ahead, Anwar, let's move on. Okay. Now, the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, through the 14 municipal corporation, take strategic and tactical responsibility as first responders to hazard impacts. And the CEO of the ODPM described level 1 as okay. This is a little more elaborate than what the CEO described, but it is more or less saying the emergency is a localized event. Such incidents are within the capacity of the municipal corporation and other first responder agencies within the municipality or the Tobago Emergency Management Agency. And in that case, the first responders agencies may include the police, the fire, health services, and the Emergency Operations Center of the municipal corporations will be activated. The CEO of the ODPM spoke about the NEOC as a National Emergency Operations Center. Well, the Municipal Operations Center or that particular regional corporation will activate their Emergency Operations Center. That's the local one. And it means that all the other state agencies within the corporation, they can respond and take care of a level 1. But look at level 2. Those are just some images. The emergency or disaster event usually affects 2 or more regional corporations, or while confined to one municipality, may be of a very serious nature, that it has the potential for significant loss of life, damage to property, environment, or the economy. In such instance, the response can be dealt with using municipal and national resources. That's what the CEO was alluding to. When we reach level 2, they will partially activate the NEOC. But at that point, if we have 4 or 5 municipal corporations being impacted, we have developed mutual aid and assistance agreements between all the different corporations. So what happens is that resources from the corporations that have not been impacted, we are talking about backhoes and trucks and all other equipment and personnel, will be brought to bear on the corporations that have been impacted. And that's the mutual aid and assistance agreement that all corporations have among themselves. That's one. Well, level 3 is when the ODPM takes strategic control. Now, it does not mean that the ODPM comes on the field and drives the trucks. No, they don't do that. We are on the ground, but strategically, the ODPM controls this particular level because this may require international help. This may require resources coming from outside, and which we would need, and the ODPM will be, the NEOC will be definitely fully activated. And I'm glad the CEO mentioned that in these modern times, we don't have to be always at the physical EOC here. We can do some of it here, and we can do some of it virtual, of course, because of this whole digital world now. Let's move on. Okay, now, this is the standard operating procedure that the ministry has developed. And I'll just read this and I'll go through the rest of it very quickly. To this end, standard operating procedures have been devised by the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government to present a framework for actionable responses of all hazard impacts by the orchestrated effort of all 14 municipalities using the manpower, equipment, materials, and associated services when and where applicable. This framework will be bolstered by mutual aid and assistance agreements amongst all cooperation. The following procedures have been adopted by the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, inclusive of all municipal cooperation in the sphere of disaster management. So what we have done, we have laid out, you can go ahead. We have laid out roles and responsibilities for every officer. So there is no doubt what we are doing. So the minister has a role, and I wouldn't read it, all of it, but you can look at it. So you found that during last year, you found the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Honorable Faris Alwari. You found him very much in the media because there's a role for the minister. And when the incident is about to take place, and and this is to my friends at Met, because I have friends at Met. From the time we see within the cone, that hurricane cone, 5 days away, we start to put things in place. And people always ask, but Met and say that yet? We have what is called a time phase schedule. Our time phase schedule says 100 hours away what must happen. So 100 hours away, the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, he will get the mayors and chairmen together. The permanent secretaries will bring the CEOs, and I would bring the disaster coordinators together for a strategic meeting. Now, we don't know whether this thing is going to make landfall, but we just know it's within the cone, and it's our responsibility to plan. So that I understand that last week, one of the communications between one of the disaster coordinators that was meant to me made its way in the public domain. And people started asking questions because here is the disaster coordinator telling me, I have inspected 22 shelters. I have spoken to the CEO and the corporations, and we are putting all these things in place. So somebody, things are, it got out to the public domain, and people started to call and ask questions. I wasn't perturbed. At least the public was knowing we prepare. And 100 hours away, we have a time phase schedule, 75 hours away, 50 hours away, 25 hours away. Everyone knows what is his responsibility. The minister starts off 100 hours away. And this is what is described here. And it says the questions he will ask and what kind of information he's seeking. Then we go on. And there's a role specific to the chief executive officer of the regional corporations. So what we have done, we have outlined exactly what the CEO is to do. The CEO ensures that the corporation develops capacity to provide the personnel necessary to go into action at a prompt and efficient response time. This speaks to readiness and the municipality activating its call-out procedure in an efficient manner to ensure that named personnel are directed to report to the incident command post. So that's just one of the functions of the CEO. And because of time, I can't go through all of the functions of the CEO, but it's laid out there. And Anwar, if the media wants to get a copy of it, that's not a problem. At least you would see how we are managing stuff in the municipal corporations. Okay, so there's the role specific to the CEO. And then there are roles specific to the disaster management unit. So the DMU must establish its emergency operations center where coordination can take place with the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government and all other agencies relevant to the response mechanism in the event of a disaster. The DMU shall ensure that emergency shelters under its remit are adequate, frequently inspected, and functional. If they are to be engaged, this would be done without the interruption of the core functions, example, the schools. The DMU shall also ensure that there are enough trained shelter managers to call upon when necessary. Now, I went to that because the CEO of the ODPM said, we don't manage shelters, and that he's correct. Now, there are no purpose-built shelters in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, meaning there are no buildings that were purposely built as shelters. There are buildings that we have designated as shelters. So we are referring to first community centers, churches, and schools. So we first go to community centers. And sometimes the public is not very forgiving. So we will show the shelters. And here's what they will say. But that shelter is exactly where it's going to be flooded out. Yes, because it was built as a community center and it was not built as a shelter. But hold on. We will not activate that shelter that is built within the floodplain for a hydrometeorological event. But if it's a seismic event and the building stands up, could we not use it for a shelter then? See what I'm saying? So based on the hazard, we can use the building. But we will not activate. So you see shelter on our shelter list. Anwar, could you get to that slide with the shelters to me? There it is. If you right click, right click on it. Okay, it should be interactive. It has all the different. All right, but this is also available online. It is interactive, so that you can see, if you zoom in, you can zoom into Diego Martin, or you can zoom into Myra Rio Claro, and all the shelters will, and the whole the map will open up, and you would see where the shelters are. But I want to remind you again that if you see the shelters, it does not mean we will open it in that, because the ones that are in a floodplain, we will use it at another time for another hazard. For instance, suppose there is a fire and a whole lot of people got impacted. There you go, you got it interactive for me. Yeah. If there's a fire and we have to house people and it is in a floodplain, and we could put them there still. So you see the problem. Okay, there it is. He got it to activate. And yeah, you can see all of it. I'm hoping that CEO, that your GIS, Brett puts in one other thing in it, capacity. So you just have to, we don't have capacity. Oh, by the way, we can actually see your home, you know. Probably pick up your home right now and how far you live from a shelter on this app. The Ministry of Rural Development and Local Development, local government developed this several years ago. And of course, we had some help from the ODPM. Good. So that if you want to have it, this could be down, you can download that in your phones, on your computer, so you will know where all the shelters are in Trinidad. Okay? And be sure to report, my beloved media, that not every building is can be used as a hydrometeorological shelter. All right? Thanks very much. Let's continue. We get in there. Those are the emergency shelter. Yes. Okay. Then we have the role specific to the disaster management unit. I think we were looking at that, and all that the group of 14 disaster management units that I supervise throughout the country. Let's move on. We have an emergency, the Municipal Emergency Operations Center also, where information comes in from the 14 municipal corporations. We can collate that information and send it to the ODPM. All right, every corporation has a health department, and I want to highlight one of the things that the health department does. The principal medical officer of health shall assist in the recovery phase by addressing environmental issues such as removal of sewage and bulk waste, as well as effecting rodent and other pest control measures, so that in a regional corporation, the removal of waste is the responsibility of the public health department. So when people put out all their beds and furniture and everything that's wet by the roadside, it's the health department of the municipal corporation that does it. They do it through their contractors. They do it through their staff. That's what the health department does in a corporation. I think there's one I want to highlight about dead animals, because that ends up being, yeah. The principal medical officer of health shall liaise with the Ministry of Agriculture, the county medical officer of health, and the community-based environmental program, CPEP, to institute a plan of action to remove and dispose of carcasses in a timely manner so as not to precipitate a public health crisis. So if you call the ODPM because it have 100 dead pigs, don't expect the CEO to send out a team. That is not his responsibility to clear the pigs. However, if I need some equipment from the Defense Force and the Defense Force has it, I'm definitely calling him. Well, and he will tell me to call Dennis because Dennis is the operations manager. We have that down, you know, we know who to call. And I wouldn't bother the CEO with those things because I know who to call. Okay, and that's the relationship we have with the ODPM, and that when there are resources needed, it's important that we connect with them. I want to highlight one other thing that the ODPM has been getting a lot of licks for, and that is search and rescue. When an event takes place and there's flooding and there is high waters and rapid flowing waters, there are no trained personnel at the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government to go in and extricate people out of the area. That is the responsibility of the fire service, the Coast Guard, and those agencies who have trained personnel to go in there. Now, sometimes we take the chance and we go in with our little dinghies because we have some marine assets. That is the DMU. We have the flat bottom dinghies and we lend it to the, we would like the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service to know, you can come and get them. Because you have been, and the Coast Guard has been training our officers, our volunteers, and our people at the Regional Corporation rescue. But that is rescue for themselves and their family. We don't train them to do mass types of rescue that requires the training of professional training. I hope you understand that. I know sometimes you say, well, we have our volunteers, our CERT volunteers, and we have had our CERT volunteers trained this year at the Maloney swimming pool by the Coast Guard on how to rescue persons who are, but that's a normal thing people do. Well, not normal, but we have engaged the Coast Guard to do that because we saw there was a need. So I'd like to declare to the Fire Service and the Coast Guard, all our marine assets we have, whatever marine assets we have, they are at your disposal when it comes to rescuing persons. Because we cannot answer, we have no insurance that will cover our people who work at the corporation. Okay, I needed to say that. All right. So next we have, you know that CPEP is also under the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, so that we will have all the cleanup, we will engage CPEP to assist the communities also. Let's go. More specific to the engineering department at a corporation. And I'll just read the first one. The engineering and survey officer or the county superintendent, as designated by the CEO of the corporation, shall act as the operations section chief in the theater of operations, as the impact zone. So that is the action on the ground will be led by the engineering, the technical and engineering department. And it outlines what they would do. Equipment and storage, the ministry has some storage, and happy to, well, no, we don't have, we will never have enough equipment to manage a level 3. Level 2, the sum total of all the resources of the 14 corporations and the ministry has helped us manage level 2s. Like at the end of, when we had flooding in the Bamboo in Tunapunapiaco, and we had in South El Socorro, that was in the Sawan Lavantil, and then we had at Mayaro, quite a bit at Mayaro also. So there was more than one corporation impacted, and we had to mobilize the resources of all the other corporations together with the resources of the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government Coordinating Unit. We have, if you go back there, we had to purchase a backhoe. So Anwar, the ministry has a backhoe now, so that when events take place and corporations need extra support, we can lend it to them. And we purchase mulchers, 2 huge mulchers, so that when trees fall, and you know how much foliage is going to go on a truck? Quite a bit. But if we can mulch it, it takes away the burden from driving stuff, going to the dump, and more productive time is employed there. So the ministry has those things, and we have lighting towers that we can work at night. And we have been able to, I think we were able to lend the fire service almost a dozen chainsaws with oil and all the different, almost a dozen. I take them back right after though. The next morning when the event didn't take place, CEO, I called and said, could you please return the government source, please? And they were very kind. And we would do that. We actually lent to TNTech also, you know. So, hey, if it happens and you need our help, we have no problem doing it. As long as they give it back to us, right? Okay. We have been developing strategic partnerships with NGOs, FBOs, and CBOs. And I'm happy to announce that we have developed a great relationship with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They are headquarters in Utah, and they have provided a lot of assistance to the ministry and communities. I mean, quite a bit. And I'm very happy that they have done that. And I am told to wrap up now. So we have the role specific to our municipal police. We are training our municipal police at the academy now to get back, to work with our municipal police, because we are going to make them fully able to respond. Because you know who people call the first time they have danger, they perceive danger? Who they call first? The police. Honest, they call the police. And the police have to report to us what is happening. So we're going to be training our municipal police. The first batch, there's a batch at our training academy in Marbella. And we're going to be at it. Let's move on. We're wrapping up now. Okay, and this is the role specific to what I do. I think what I do at the ministry. And I think I've been describing quite a bit of what I do. I want to also must speak about community emergency response team. If you have not been trained as a CERT volunteer, then you need to get trained. I mean, all persons who are part of the NDPPM should be trained CERT volunteers. We are about to do CERT simulation games, the grand final. We are hopeful to have it at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. Don't tell anybody yet. That's what we're trying. We still want to get it there. And we have zones, the whole of Trinidad. We have broken them into North Zone, South Zone, Central Zone, and East Zone. And volunteers together with members of the corporation, 100 strong. They are going to be doing a full-scale simulation exercise. We are going to be simulating a hurricane. We're going to be building a set. We're going to have actors who are going to be moulaged with depicting all the different injuries, and the volunteers have to go in, set up the incident command post, extinguish the fires that we're going to set. They're going to be cutting the tree that is on the building. They're going to be extricating the bodies. They're going to be triaging them, taking them from first triage to the medical treatment area where they're going to be treating them. It's a whole drama of what is likely to happen if a hurricane makes landfall in a community and the community has to respond. We want to invite you to that. It is on the July 9th, and tentatively we are looking at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy, and we want the whole of your communities, all the communities to come out and support your team in that municipal corporation. My time is up. I can speak all day. I used to be a preacher man, so you find that could talk plenty, right? So thank you very much for your listening, and I look forward to working with you. Community Emergency Response Team, I want you guys to do it. The Ministry of Education, is it here? I've been trying to get in that ministry to do things for so long. And all the different ministries. Let's mainstream disaster risk reduction. And the only way to do that is not know it through an intellectual assent. Get down into the belly of the thing learn how to do search and rescue, learn how to extinguish fires, learn how to treat injuries. That's what we do at the ministry. That's our flagship community emergency response team program. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. David, for your very enthusiastic presentation on the capacities, capabilities, and readiness of the regional corporations to respond to a disaster, and for also reinforcing the arm's length that you have extended to each and every one of us to get on board and get involved. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to hear from the Tobago Emergency Management Agency. Regrettably, they are not in person, but they have joined us virtually. Mr. Alan Stewart has sent his apologies and therefore has asked Mr. Darian Mitchell, GIS specialist, to present for us virtually the capabilities and readiness of the Tobago Emergency Management Agency. Darian, it's over to you online.
All right, thank you very much. I'm not seeing the permission to share my screen. Hold for 1 second. Just let me know if you're seeing the screen. Hello? Hello?
As we wait for Darian, I
Okay,
just
I'm
want
seeing
to
the screen.
remind the media that we will have a quick question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So you can begin to collate your very concise questions that you will ask pertaining to this morning's presentations.
Okay,
No, not yet. We're just going to allow the Tobago Emergency Management Agency to present, and then we will take questions.
Okay, good day. Just confirming that you all are hearing me.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, just to give you all a brief synopsis, our mission is to coordinate.
Tobago Emergency Management Agency to present, and then we will take questions.
Okay, good day. Just confirming that you all are hearing me.
We can hear you.
Anwar, there's an echo from my side. Everything is being repeated to me.
I can hear you, Darian. Can you hear me? Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead since you all are hearing me, but there's a delay and an echo on my side. All right. The Tobago Emergency Management
Darian,
Agency.
you can proceed.
Our mission is basically to coordinate a network of agencies and individuals on the island of Tobago to direct their efforts towards the maximum preservation of life and the protection of property in times of disaster. Our operation concept, we do this by liaising with our various stakeholders in emergency management.
Darian, we seem to not be hearing you. Just allow us 2 minutes to rectify the technical difficulties.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Is there still a delay or is it real time?
Okay, I am not hearing the echo. So far, so good.
Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. This is for the persons within the room.
Darian, are you hearing us now? Can you unmute and please indicate if you can hear us?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearly now.
So I'm hearing the audio very light.
It's very light.
Lovely, I can hear you now. Please share your screen and present.
All right, thank you very much.
Darian, are you hearing us now? Can you unmute and please indicate if you can hear us?
I am unmuted and I'm not sure if you're hearing me.
I'm hearing the audio very light.
It's very light.
Lovely, I can hear you now. Please share your screen and present.
All right, thank you very much. I know I think there seems to be the same delay.
Darian, are
again.
you hearing us now? Can you unmute and please indicate if you can hear us?
I am unmuted and I'm not sure if you're hearing me.
I'm hearing the audio very light.
It's very light.
Lovely, I can hear you now. Please share your screen and present.
All right, thank you very much. I know I think there seems to be the same delay.
Darian,
again.
are you hearing us now? Can you unmute and please indicate if you can hear us? Mute our mic.
for want of a better word, of the of those services, of the defense force. Yeah, so we call them. What we would do is we would come in and do all the assessments. We will bring in mattresses, we will bring in hampers, we will bring in water for you. But to rescue you, we cannot. We can come in and do the assessment, and I'm happy to announce that once we put in the information about what has happened in your home through the assessment, and again, I have to thank the ODPM for that. We now have a system, survey 123. So if I come to your house now and I do an assessment and I said, you lost your fridge, you lost your bed, you lost your chest of drawers and everything. If I have Wi-Fi or data on my phone, social development gets the information real time. Now that's good, you know, real time. If I don't have Wi-Fi or data, as soon as I go to a place that I can have data or Wi-Fi, it uploads immediately and social development sees it. Now that's what we're responsible for. If you need mattresses and you need hampers and you need tarpaulins and you need to find a place to stay, to shelter, that's what we will do. But we cannot clear the river. Remember, that's the main river. You're talking about the Caroni River there, right? The responsibility for clearing of the Caroni River is not the regional corporations. That's the Ministry of Works and Transport. And they do a whole program every year. I never criticize them because I think they do a whole hell of a lot of work trying to clear water courses. But as I said, we have built our human settlements in the parts of the water, many of which are in the floodplain, and we have to learn to adapt. And that's what climate change is asking us to do, to adapt to what is happening, to the changes in the weather patterns. Okay, so I want to say, those who want to build homes in that area, build it on still now. Build it on column still, and don't put a business downstairs or apartment downstairs, because there is going to get flooded out because you are in the floodplain. Adaptation is the cornerstone for climate change and its impact.
Thank you, Mr. David. Darian has indicated that he's here in the room, Claire. So we're going to allow him the opportunity to now present. Let's try. Yes, your presentation, Darian, please unmute and present.
Testing 1, 2, 3, just confirming that you all are hearing me real time.
Yes, we can hear you real time. Let's proceed. Hopefully it goes uninterrupted.
All right, thank you very much. Once again, Murphy's Law. So my name is Darian Mitchell, and I'm the GIS specialist for the Tobago Emergency Management Agency. I'm just going to give a brief synopsis on what the agency is about. So ideally, our mission is to coordinate a network of agencies and individuals on the island of Tobago to direct their efforts towards the maximum preservation of life and the protection of property in times of disaster. How do we do this? We go about doing this by liaising with other various stakeholders in emergency management. Now, please bear in mind, this is not only limited to emergency responders, because we have the Tobago Disaster Management Committee, which has, in fact, stakeholders from various agencies throughout the Tobago House of Assembly, TNTEC, WASA, Airport Authority, Port Authority, and the list goes on and on. Now, what we do is we meet on a monthly basis to ensure that all our resources can be properly shared in the adverse event that someone is lacking resources, to ensure that our operations can run smoothly. Now, our geographic dynamic is different to Trinidad, whereby we are much smaller, so we have the capabilities of sharing our resources, and that makes it much easier for us as it relates to responding. For example, if a tree is falling in Roxborough, we wouldn't send the search response team to go and cut that tree. We will contact the Roxborough Fire Station because it's a much more logical solution. And then and there, they would go and clear the tree. We would then contact the IQUD to remove the remittance or the debris from the tree if it based on the size of the tree. So moving forward, some hazards and threats that we usually deal with in Tobago: hurricanes, storms, adverse weather, earthquakes, landslides, flooding, bush or house fires, medical emergencies, and marine incidents, just to name a few. So the TEMA's disaster management resources include our information management system, or resource and asset tracking systems, emergency communication assets, or field hospital, disaster management committee, the disaster relief warehouse, the community emergency response team, CERT, where we have two branches. One is CERT Pro. Those are persons that are trained in over 20 disciplines, and those are paid personnel. And then we have our CERT volunteer corps. We have persons ranging from EMTs to persons with radio communications, persons that can operate chainsaws, and so on and so forth within the CERT volunteer corps. In times of activation, we call on these persons and they do come out and assist in a big way. Based on climate information, events, and trends, we are able to isolate areas highest at risk, isolate populations highest at risk, map inundation zones, determine appropriate placement of multi-hazard early warning systems, create resources and hazard maps for most communities, and create evacuation plans for Crown Point and Scarborough. Reasons we focus on Crown Point and Scarborough is if you look at this map, the landslide and flood susceptibility, the Crown Point and Scarborough area is mostly susceptible to flooding. Based on the inundation map, this will also mean that they are very susceptible to tsunamis. They are flat-laying land, and unfortunately, the closest muster point is Bethel, and that's more than 5 kilometers away from Crown Point. So in the adverse event of a tsunami, let's say we have 20 minutes to evacuate, this will be very difficult to do. So we focus more on these areas where the evacuation is much more difficult. Based on our topography, fortunately, persons within mountainous areas, they could just head to higher ground and they would be safe from tsunamis. Preparation and response. So completed thus far, we have done multiple general staff trainings. In the general staff trainings, we have did small tools training with the response teams. They would have received certificates for their refreshers in terms of medical, their medical aspect. We have various GIS trainings which would have been done and are currently being done, especially with GeoCris. We have general staff tabletop exercises, response to drills with airport and Cove recently, ensuring staff is aware of their shifts, etc. So if we are to be activated, staff knows when to come out, what time the shift starts, who is working on shift 1, who is working on shift 2, who may be working on shift 3 if they needs be. So we try to ensure that the teams are properly balanced going forward. Testing of our assets. Our early warning systems are tested on the first Thursday of every month. They are located one in Scarborough and 3 in Crown Point, Milford Court, and Canaan, respectively. So these systems are tested on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. If we have an emergency, for example, with the airport when we had the drill, the early warning system was utilized and persons did in fact hear it and they were aware that something was taking place. We have our radio checks that are usually done daily. We also check or test our trackers, dashboards, mass notification systems, generators, small tools, and even our reporting system and information system or information management system. Moving on from this, we would have had shelter management training conducted last year in August. This would have been done with community development, the volunteers and persons from the village councils. We are supposed to conduct a refresher very soon as the village councils would have recently had their elections. So there would have been a shift in change in personnel. What we did do as well is from the volunteers, we ensure that there were persons within various communities, or at least almost every community. And going forward, they would also be working with the appointed shelter managers. So even if the shelter manager is new, there's also someone who is trained there to guide them accordingly in the adverse event that we have to activate the shelter, right? We visit schools to ensure that they have evacuation and emergency response plans. We did this in February, and going through the primary schools, we realized that a lot of them don't even have a crisis management committee. A lot of schools didn't know what is the trigger for a fire, the trigger for a bomb threat, what is the trigger for any type of emergency or thing. So what we did, we visited the schools, we sent them a draft template and allowed them to start working on the evacuation plan. We did multiple site visits, ensuring that they are aware of where their muster points are, alternative muster points, and how they respond to drills. Currently, what we are doing now, I'm going to move on to ongoing. We are actually evaluating schools, evacuation, and emergency response plans. So based on the information that we would have given them and the guidance we gave to them, they would now be executing. So we would just be there evaluating, assessing them, telling them what they did right, what could be worked on, etc. Even today, we have one at the Plymouth Anglican Government School at 1:30 p.m. So if you want, I'll probably contact our PRO and have her videotape the drill and send it to you all, right? Education and awareness campaigns. Our education awareness campaign has begun with ODPM, Met Services, and other agencies. The first one was at the Portmore last Friday. They'll be moving to Sid Gray on the 19th, as previously mentioned, as well as a physical walkabout through Scarborough will be done on the 26th. Other areas on the island would be done on various dates, but that is to also be scheduled. Currently ongoing, we are revising plans and including the challenges faced recently and solutions attached to these. Our next TDMC meeting will be dealing with situations such as these. So based on the challenges we faced where agencies may have been short of vehicles to respond, short of apparatus, short of assets. So we'll know what the challenges are going forward and put mitigation practices in place to ensure that we can properly execute or respond to any adverse event. Emergency shelter visits. Our emergency shelter visits would begin on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, the 16th. It will be done with OSH, Occupational Health and Safety, Public Health, Community Development, Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service, and TEMA. The reason why it's a joint select committee is because each person will be looking for various things. So OSH will be looking obviously for health and safety. Public Health will be looking at the running water, toilet facilities, the kitchen area, etc. Community Development, they are responsible for the buildings, the community centers. So they will be receiving the information as well as seeing firsthand what is taking place. Fire Service, they will be looking for fire hazards, ensuring that all the extinguishers are checked, the hoses are fully functional, etc. And then TEMA, we will be looking at the shelters to determine what they can be utilized for. Because as Mr. Jerry recently said, a shelter may not be utilized for hydrometeorological activity, but if it withstands an earthquake, it can also be utilized in a situation like that. It can also be utilized to house persons who may have been affected by a fire, God forbid, right? The shelter management training is also to be done again, as well as refreshers for the village councils. Our GeoCris training is currently being done with myself and my assistant with Sidima, as well as we are currently updating our GIS database. We are checking over shape files, ensuring that a lot of stuff is updated, ensuring evacuation routes in the adverse event of anything is to occur. They are up to date, schools, critical resources, etc. And upcoming, on Monday, we'll be launching a social media campaign. The PRO has not released much information to us as yet, but she said it will be launched on Monday. As well as the logistics department will be restocking the emergency shelter kits. There are currently 9 shelter kits at 9 centers throughout the island strategically placed. The commencement of the community flood early warning systems. We have 2 locations to be appointed in Tobago as well. So this is going to be underdone soon. And that brings me to the end of my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Darian. Darian, I'm going to ask you to remain online and we're going to take all directed questions to TEMA one time now that we have the communication effective before we move to the Trinidad questions. Are there any questions directed to TEMA at this point in time?
I was trying to put on my camera, but it says that I am unable to do so.
Any other questions to Tima? Darren, it seems as though you answered all the questions, so it's almost rice and peas hour, so persons seems to think otherwise. All right,
That is
there be no
it.
questions for Darren. Darren, thank you so much for bearing with us the technical difficulties. And thank you for your presentation on the work that's ongoing at the Tobago Emergency Management Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, I now bring us back to the question and answer segment. It is 11:58 a.m. We did have an end time of 12, but to allow for free conversations, we will facilitate some questions that are very brief for response to members of the head table. Please inform who you are directing your question to. I see Sigoni is on standby and ready.
The ministry have one back for the whole. Yeah, he asked that. Corporations have budgets that build their capacity for equipment. So corporations will have the equipment, the trucks, the backhoes, the excavators, all of that. All right. Since I've been at the ministry, I'm trying to supplement what they have, so that the backhoe at the ministry is not used for the everyday running of a corporation. That is for primarily if there's some hazard impact and a corporation says, listen, we need some help with Sanders Tobacco, and I will try and send it to them based upon how grave the situation is. Even with the mulchers, I saw the need that, listen, all this mud, all this foliage going to the dump, and the time it takes to get there for the truck to come back. If we grind it and we leave it right there, here's what we realize: people come with their bags and they take it and they go with it, and they use it for all kinds of stuff. So we didn't have a problem with that. So that's what we're doing. Remember, we are a ministry. The ministry does not respond in cases like that. It is the corporation that operationalizes all stuff. But we're trying to assist from our end and building some capacity. Let me give you an example again. The corporations have to have mattresses, cots, everything for a disaster. You know what we did at the ministry? We are acting as their contingency now, just in case they don't have. At a point, we will be able to supply them with some of the items. Many of the items, we were fortunate to have donors give to us, and they are at the warehouse. And we have also set up 20-foot containers with disaster relief items, generators and pumps and sandbags and chainsaws and a range of stuff. We have a 40-foot container in Tunapuna. We have a 20-foot container in Cuba Tabakit, a 20-foot container in Sandy Grande, and we have a 40-foot container in San Fernando. So we're building out, we are building it out so that when corporations, because of whatever reason, are short, they have a shortfall, I would normally have called the ODPM. Yeah? And even now, if I don't have some of the things, I'm still inclined to call them and say, listen, we need so-and-so, can you help us? So we're building capacity in Trinidad. Apart from building capability of our CERT volunteers, we're building capacity to help. You notice that last year, nobody complained about they didn't get hampers and they didn't get bedding and they didn't get anything. For all the other things they complain about, but not for that. Yes, but I am prepared. I am prepared for up to level 12. Yes.
Siguni.
Morning again, everyone, or afternoon, regardless. Sigoni from TV6. I'll make this very short since we're out of time. Mr. David, earlier you started your opening statements talking about money. Can you tell us definitively at this time, how much does it actually cost our nation in preparing for our wet and hurricane season? And out of that money, how much is actually invested in DRR, if any at all?
That question, I think the ODPM, the CEO should answer that question. I can answer, but I think because it's a whole general nation thing, I think the CEO has to do that one.
All right, so just for the benefit of everyone, DRR, when we speak about DRR, we talk about disaster risk reduction, okay, which is the front end as opposed to the response, which is what we've been speaking a lot of today, response and some recovery. I cannot tell you a figure, Sigoni, how much we spend, but I can tell you that more and more, because of the challenges we are facing with climate change, more funding is going in there. Because funding in disaster management go across many ministries. For example, while the ODPM, which comes under the Ministry of National Security, focus would be on this DRR, right? Traditional DRR, you also have the Ministry of Planning, because of climate change and its effects, also focusing on it, but from a mitigation perspective. So it's difficult to give you a figure. Probably in future is something that we would capture, how much money we really spend on DRR.
Humor us at this time with a blanket figure.
So because?
Are you able to humor us at this time?
No,
with a
no, no,
blanket figure?
I wouldn't want to give you wrong information. I wouldn't want to.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
All right, well,
you're too valuable to the ODPM to give you wrong figures.
I'll move on to my second question, and a simple yes or no answer will do. Given the fact that we've had a lot of discovery today with boats being readily available for the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service, barcodes for operation, etc., from Mr. David's point of view, I just want to find out, given what the Met Office has been saying for some time now with identifiable areas where there is risk or the potential for severe incidents to occur, do you all actually do visits prior to the wet and hurricane season for these areas? And if you do, in fact, do visits, what is it that you all put in place for the public?
Okay, let me answer some of that. Yes, the disaster management units update its vulnerability maps and every year. And we have documentation of where all the flooding takes place. The DMUs know every single area that will flood. And I think quite a few bit Trinidadians know that also. You know also in your community where will flood. Because I see you post, a lot of people posting it on social media. So, you know, we know that. What we can do, that's another discussion. So we can identify it, we can map it. The Ministry of Works will have to do their part in clearing the watercourse. And as I said, a great part of the development program funding for corporations, a great part of it is spent on doing box drains and clearing watercourses. We have underground teams at regional corporations that work daily to clear underground drains, so that there's a constant daily mitigation program taking place in corporations. People don't see it because you may see it when you go at the side of the streets and you see these guys early in the morning taking out all this muck out of the watercourses or the drains. What we can do if they are overwhelmed because of more rains falling in the area than usual, precipitated by climate change. What we can do as the Regional Corporation Disaster Management Unit, we respond and we bring relief. That's what we are set up for. And because we don't have at the DMU budgets to clear water courses, but the regional corporations will have. And the extent of their releases will depend upon how many drains they clear. I hope that, and I like to talk it real with you rather than try to make it sound good. And I think that's the best way, because in the end, you live in the community, I live in my community. I had mud in 2011 up to bed high, and I had to deal with it.
We have another question from Colleen, and then we have probably the last question from Newsday.
All right, my question is directed to either Mr. Smart or Mr. David, and I'm going to give some context before. Last month, we had flooding in Sangre Grande, pretty bad. We had, in some places, 6 feet of water. One resident, marooned in her home, tried calling the ODPM to get rescued. The ODPM told her they have the equipment, but they don't have the manpower to respond, to operate the equipment. She called the fire service because there was a high water rescue that she was requesting. Fire service responded and said they don't have the equipment, but they have the manpower, right? And we heard today, a lot of we are not the first responders go to you start at the council and DMU level, then work your way up the chain. So who exactly is the first responder in a disaster? Because you're having situations now where the system is essentially breaking down for the citizens on the ground who are impacted by these hazards. And is it a case where citizens now need to assess which hazards they're being affected and call the respective person, or should they call the ODPM first and the ODPM as the coordinating agency in the country direct their call where it has to go?
Okay, it's interesting how you put that there though, because Sangre Grande has marine assets. It may be just about two dinghies, flat bottom, that can actually go into waters and bring people out. So that in a case like that, I'm sorry that that worked out that way. If they had called the disaster coordinator in Sangre Grande, or if they had called me, I would have known, okay, the fire service needs to borrow the equipment. You see? And then we would have gotten it there. And then we'd have brought all three things together. Manpower, equipment, and the skills. That would have happened.
So my question is, who does the public call in a disaster? Who is their point of contact?
Okay, at the regional level, people call the ODPM all the time because the ODPM has built up that sort of image. People do that. And that's not a problem because the ODPM will call us and tell us what is happening. In a case like, if they had called the ODPM then, and the ODPM had contacted us, do you have the boat? Yes, the boat is in Sangre Grande. And CEO, I'm thinking now that we should leave the boats for the fire service. I see the fire officer there. I may have to leave it at the police, leave it at the fire station.
Let me join in.
Yes.
So, Colin, it's unfortunate.
Yes.
And I use this term all the time. I explained this last week, right out in the car park when all the reporters were here. And I'll say it again. One has to be careful when a citizen said they called the ODPM. There is this ingrained thought in our culture that the DMUs are really the ODPM. So when you hear someone say they call the ODPM, you must ask them who they really call. Because many times, because of how our disaster management system evolved over time, everything came out of the ODPM. It was NEMA, and NEMA was broad. And then what we did was we separated the functions. But in people's mind, it is still the ODPM. So I heard that the ODPM was called. Unfortunately, it wasn't this ODPM that was called. And we have to take the blame sometimes, well, many times when we haven't been called. The people refer to the ODPM as the DMUs. But also, I'll say, sometimes they do good work. And I take the praise because they say the ODPM, right? And I take the praise, right? So I take the blame and the praise. But to answer you directly though, the first call is to the DMU. And I say it all the time. You have to call your region. You have to call your corporation. It's the DMU you call, right? If however, you cannot get through for whatever reason, call the ODPM. Because we have mechanisms in place that we can get through to them for you. As Mr. David just indicated, once we get the information, we will pass it on to DMU, but also TIMA, because people sometimes call ODPM because of a situation in Tobago, and we will call TIMA. Because at the local level, we must ensure that the system works. But we will never, ever have a situation where a citizen call and we don't do anything about it, even if it means going straight to the Defense Force to ask for support, which we have done in the past. Okay.
Thank you. We now have the last intervention by the floor.
Hi, Melissa Doughty, Newsday. This question is to Major General Smart. Do you think that the public is responsive to the ODPM's messaging of disaster preparedness, or do you think that as a society, people are still largely reactive to disasters?
And thanks very much for the question. I'll refer to my experience in 2004 when I went to Grenada after they had Hurricane Ivan. And while there, one of the things you heard the Grenadians say was that God was a Grenadian, just like how we say God is a Trini, right? They used to say God was a Grenadian. In fact, I shouldn't say. They used to say God was a Grenadian. In other words, a very relaxed attitude. And it is a human nature situation, not Trinidad, Grenada, St. Vincent. It is how human beings behave. In the absence of any challenge, people become very relaxed. And in our case, we go down on the avenue or we go on the promenade down south and we drink a beer or whatever. Even though Met has told us this is a orange level, even though they told us that, but God is a Trinity. So we have, nationally, we have this very relaxed way in treating laissez-faire sometimes. I must admit though, probably through this National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Month activities, what you're seeing is a greater perception that we are at risk. You're seeing that. You're seeing persons doing things that, you feel that the change is taking place. Climate change is also having something to do with it. So we are becoming more aware as a society. But however, unfortunately, some of us are still very relaxed. And the further and further away you go from a disaster situation, the more relaxed you get, unfortunately. That is how human beings behave. So that's why this committee is so important. That's why this month is so important. And that's why you are so important, because you have to help us get that message through. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Major General, for concluding our comments and question and answer session with a very articulate response on the importance of national preparedness and prevention. Ladies and gentlemen, all that's left for me to do is to say thank you, but we're going to have one quick video for you to view. You would have heard us speak of the PANs. So before I close, I allow me to please indulge you for a few minutes for the PANs video, and then we'll close.
Introducing Trinidad and Tobago's Public Alert Notification System, PANS, the modern way to get critical emergency information. PANS makes it easy to ensure you, your neighbors, co-workers, family, and friends all have access to this mass alerting platform through the most proven and effective methods of communicating. Sign up via our 3 available options. 1. Sign up by logging on to odpm.gov.tt/PANS registration link, where you can follow the instructional video that takes you step by step on how to sign up with no download using your smartphone, tablet, or computer. 2. Sign up with the free Everbridge mobile app, where you can download from your app or Play Store. You can also follow the mobile app instructional video that takes you step by step from the odpm.gov.tt/PANS website. 3. PANS offers our citizens the luxury of providing their contact and location information to our trained and authorized officials through a secure sign-up form, where our officials will do all the signing up for you. With your public alert notification system or PANS account, you will be able to register the devices of your choice and be notified from this system during national emergencies through your preferred channel of communication. You can join the nation, region, and the world in being better prepared for emergencies, crises, national disruptions, or disasters by signing up for PANS. This is a message from the ODPM, the National Disaster Coordinating Agency of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Alerting you, alerting TNT. PANS. Stay safe. Sign up.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have now come to the end of today's proceedings, the climate outlook presentation and panel discussion. Allow me to first begin by thanking Mr. Gary Benjamin for his presentation on the Western hurricane season, as well as the climate outlook for Trinidad and Tobago for the next few months. Also, allow me to thank Major General Retired Rodney Smart, Chief Executive Officer, ODPM, Mr. Jerry David, Senior Disaster Management Coordinator, Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, and Mr. Darren Mitchell, GIS Specialist, Tobago Emergency Management Agencies, for their presentations and panel discussion on the preparedness and capabilities of agencies to respond to an incident as a result of the Western hurricane season. But more so, allow me to thank you, members of the participating team, for your participation, your attention, your questions, and your answers that were gathered here in this room. Allow me, before I close, to please remind you of some critical events that are coming as part of this NDPPM. Starting tomorrow, we are at Irwin Park in Siparia from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. for our public fair. Please share this information. Also, I invite you to a 2-part series, Coping with Impact-Related Loss and Accessing Relief. The first part being a webinar on Tuesday, 16th May from 5 to 7 p.m. online, as well as the physical aspect, which is on the 18th of May from 6 to 8 p.m. at Northeastern College in Sangre Grande. And then join us on Friday, 19th in Port Brian Laura Promenade, as well as Roxborough, for public fair. Ladies and gentlemen, visit the ODPM website for more information on NDPPM at www.odpm.gov.tt/NDPPM. Have a good day and please take care of yourself. Pleasant good afternoon.